Franziska Racquer Centers was founded in 1948 by families who had children with cerebral palsy. Their vision was for a society that was both welcoming and supportive of individuals with disabilities. And I'm proud to say, after 65 years, we still have that same vision today. Our annual budget is $28 million. We serve over 3,000 people in Tompkins, Cortland, and Tioga counties, which is located in the Finger Lakes region of New York State. We have over 770 employees, which makes us one of the top 10 employers in this area. Our program service areas include residential, early childhood services, community-based services, and mental health services. In our residential program, we have 22 group homes. Our early childhood services include evaluations, early intervention, preschool services, and itinerant therapies. Our community-based services serve 150 individuals and families to help them stay in the community, living with either their family or on their own. And our mental health day treatment program works with 2 local BOCES. Our approach to providing these services is grounded in our mission, and our mission is to provide individuals with disabilities with a good life. I'd like to give you an example. In our preschool, we have integrated preschool classrooms that have both typical need kids and special need kids, and that gives us a double win. First, the individuals with special needs get to have typical role models and peers in the classroom, and second, those individuals with typical needs will go up to help promote our vision, which is to accept individuals and welcome them into our community. What we've seen over the last 10 or 20 years is changes in the needs of the individuals that we're serving in 3 main areas. First, in our residential program, with the advances in medical technology and services, we're finding that individuals with disabilities live a lot longer than they used to, 10, 20 years on average longer, which means the individuals in our group home are aging, and we have to provide support that help them age properly along with their disability supports. A second area where we're seeing changes is in the types of individuals that are coming to us for services. In the past, we were mostly seeing children with cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, things like that, developmental disabilities. Now we're seeing a vast majority of kids come in with social, emotional, and behavioral issues. And so we've really had to refine our skills to understand how to work with individuals with behavioral challenges. And the third area, of course, is widely known, and that's a huge increase in the number of people with autism and on the autism spectrum. We estimate that about 1/3 of the individuals that we serve are on the autism spectrum. The last few years have really been difficult. Our government has cut back on our funding. The economy was really tough, so it was really difficult to raise money. And so we've had to make some changes in efficiency, increased use of technology. We've unfortunately had to lay off some staff, really make some hard decisions. Take a look at whether we provide center-based services or we do itinerant therapies, because center-based is much more efficient. But we are in the new normal now. In the new normal, I think we have to operate like a business, and I think that there's an analogy that applies. Many of my executive director partners think of operating like a business as a terrible thing for a nonprofit. But in fact, for-profits measure their business based on return to shareholder. We can, in the nonprofit world, actually have the same measure, except it's not a shareholder that we're measuring the return to. It's our community and the funders who are providing us with the money. So it's our return on the investment from donors, our return on our investment to the United Way, our return on our investment to the government that provides us with money. So some of the steps we're taking to increase our community return, one example is an affiliation. There's a local nonprofit here in Ithaca who for the past 7 months has been in need of a director of finance and a director of compliance. And we have affiliated with them to provide that staff. So they are going to hire some of our individuals. They'll still be paid through our organization, but our director of finance will go down there and report to their executive director for that portion of the functions. And the same thing is true for our director of compliance. We want people to think about this as an affiliation. It's not a merger, it's not contracted services. They're really hiring us to provide specific services to them in those functions. The advantage to that is it's going to cost them less money than they would have had to pay to hire somebody, so they're going to have more money for services. It's going to cost us less to provide it than we're being paid, so we're going to have more money to pay for services. Thus, the return on investment for both their donors and their government supporters and ours is increased. And this is a model that we hope to do more of. I think if over time we'll be able to prove to the community that it has nothing to do with merging, we're not taking them over, they're not taking us over, and it'll be something that the community will wrap their arms around. As resources get tighter and tighter, we're going to have to get wiser in terms of how we work as a network of nonprofits. I think it's important for donors and government to support organizations like ours because we understand how to support individuals with disabilities in a way that's going to reduce the costs overall for society. We're working hard towards moving toward natural supports. So instead of taking an individual with disabilities to horseback riding lessons by paid staff on a continual basis, maybe they take them to horseback riding lessons and they introduce them to people that are taking horseback riding lessons that are typical need people. A friendship develops, and hopefully that father then picks up the individual with disability and takes them to horseback riding lessons. I'm going to tell you about why I think integrated preschool program is so important. A few years ago, we had an individual who was working in our Cortland office. When she came to work with us, she had a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. Her 3-year-old, she entered in our daycare as a typical needs child. That child was in our integrated preschool classroom, and after a couple years, of course, moved on to kindergarten. We fast forward a few years, and she asked her 2 daughters if they wanted to help her with an overnight for individuals with disabilities. They both said yes, and the next day she was talking to her 2 daughters. The daughter who was not in the integrated preschool classroom talked about the kids by their disability, the child that was in the wheelchair, the child who had trouble talking. And she said it was so interesting when I talked to my other daughter who was in the integrated preschool, she referred to the kids like any of us would. The child with the yellow sweatshirt, the little boy who had the New York Giants baseball cap or football cap on. So she was blind to the individual's disabilities. My hope for the future is that there's a network of nonprofits and government agencies that work together to provide the supports that individuals need. I'll know we'll be successful when there isn't the institutional model and there isn't a group home where people are isolated with disabilities. I'll know we're successful when people are in the community, participating in the community, and supported by the community.